There was a preconceived notion or agenda in the minds of all the persecutors who tried to compare me with others in art, brand, theft, identity control, Sarajoto in general. Because I did nothing myself, but everything was being guided the entire time. And even though I myself developed a life, I had been sabotaged earlier before I became aware of human IP consciousness, which is, to the point and extent where I can do things that's reasonable for my nature. And my nature was artistic from the cradle, right? So I didn't know that my life was sabotaged to this extent early on. But when I found out, I left. And so after that, I did everything I should do. And all of a sudden, the afterlife became alive. And when the afterlife came to life, I became aware of it. And that's all I could tell you at that. The rest of this stuff was a court case, tokenage, which means I was watching the whole time everything develop in a way that I could not touch or defend against up until this point. And then when I saw where it would become, I did everything that I could according to it for my self-defense. And that's all I am, a victim in this whole predicament. So for 8 years, I've been on a trail to figure out what happened to my scattered Galacity. And I didn't know what it was or how it happened until today. And so now at the end of the factor, meaning when I didn't understand what was going on with my life around me, but it was something extraordinarily happening. And so after that, I played games with Yadi Joes and did the things I should do. And I played games with all I could. When I couldn't stay with any of it, nor appreciate any of it, nor did I know myself any of it was something that I could have anything to do with. So, as I told you before, unnaturally were situations, events, and corticados guided to be a certain result. But I myself derailed from wherever it was headed at and did things according to what I felt I should do as a person, human, and a spiritual deity, if you will, for following the righteous path, the straight and narrow, and also the righteous path of Titadado, which is heaven's italics for the place of good wealth, rocho, and prosper. Meaning I did it myself in the afterlife. And I went through many trials and sufferings, tribulations, and all of these things myself before the afterlife woke up. And so I already was there where I should be spiritually. But nobody was there to judge that because they had already fallen in enmity. And so that's none of my concern or business in my perspective. But if those people, women, men, children, whatever they were, spirits, if they knew that I myself was doing something different, then I don't think they should have been the ones there for the glistening, if you know what I'm saying. They should have tried to do the glittering if I stayed with the righteous path of all things that I should have been with as a person or a human being in the earth, wardrobe, naturally, on the path of all things good. And so, since I marvel at the praiseworthy things and nothing more, I live. But if people are extorting me or you to worship a person or a thing in a different way, then it's still doing what the Bible said in those pages about the beast, the Antichrist, and all of those things together. So they're still forcing you in a long on reach way to worship or praise a God. That is not yours in a different way. And that's what it was. I was being extorted and coached down on in order to build bones on tatos on somebody else's loins. And I myself was not somebody eligible for it in my sight, in my own sight. And so I didn't and never would. And because the situation is exposed is what it is in the afterlife, even if it happened, it couldn't. So that means I'm formally immune for whatever that was happening back then with goodness. And that's what it is. So in the eyes of whoever would matter, because in my mind straight and jaws at my times of my greatest Kentaro, I was right there with their eyes on the clouds of Miss Kratos Capero, Wojo. And that's something even Satan know himself. And so I stayed with what I should do according to my nature, which was not evil, but good. And so that's all I was, a righteous person that was doing what I should do without the sword of carnality. And I did not do anything that they told me not to. And I didn't do anything they told me to do if it would have led to my harm or bad results. And so with that, that's the life and consummation of Dexter Jerome Ray Jr., which is a name that I was forced to live with. And so I did what I should do about it. And after that, that's what it was. It's by miracle and faith, unnaturally, if you will. Yeah, for me to be in this position or to see aftermath. It's by faith and miracles, that I even made it to this point. Because this is not a natural occurrence in the best way for me and the worst way for whatever was against me. Yeah, because at the time, it was no indication or no facelifts or face riches or any type of thing. Nobody said anything because they didn't expect me to live after contention when I didn't do anything to deserve it, or never did I with it. And so since I myself did everything I should, I lived. But if somebody told me not to do the things that are good, and I would, then I would not listen because I can't do it. But if I did righteously and people were against it, I wouldn't understand it. What if I live evilly and something happened to me? Then it makes sense. What if I live righteously and royally according to the righteous words and the holy stuff in the Bible? Then I shouldn't have had these type of things happen to me. But if I would not have acted, made these recordings, all these messy poems and things of this nature, then I myself would not have had a life different than what those who they respected in evil would have had in the same way, even though I myself did not will or want or seek evil or anything that they did in their path or their journey. And so since I'm different and they knew it, I live life royally and legendarily. But if they would have never told me that I couldn't, then I would have never had a chance to do anything better. But if I live righteous royally and nobody cares, then it's not the fault of the one chosen for it. And since I do everything that I should and nobody's there, then I'm the one chosen for it. But if I don't do it and nobody said I should, then I live life royally and robberly. But if I stay home, humble, and everything like I'm supposed to, and nobody cares, and then all of a sudden they become aware and they start caring, then that means I was under attack the whole time and I ain't know it. But if I stayed righteous, royal, and I stayed holy in the tabernacle of all Ans Riajados, then I was supposed to. But if later on in my life I amassed a group of resumes and employments and Sumatras that was unrelated to the criminal industry tato that was happening to my life because of need and desperation, which is similar to what every other American life would be like, then it's not my fault if they themselves put themselves in the same position of crime, boss, mafieto as they did when I was a child against the same person, which is me. That is not my problem, fault, or being. So I should be protected, and God bless those who would care. But if they don't care, I'm fine with it, because now I should be pretty known in the eyes of those who don't know. Because at the time, nobody cared. But later on, with information, facts, and a voice, I was able to be understood. And you realize my path, journey, and interests do not align in any which way to those who were the ones chosen for the business or goodness. And so I live life royally, legendarily, and I stayed humble in spite of extraordinary hardcore circumstances of all types of mysteries. So my life was royal and I was doing what I should, but then I left, and that was all. So I lived royally, righteously, and I stayed where I should have been the whole time, in spite of who knew it or did not witness it. And that's the way it was the whole time. So I stayed righteous, royal, and heavenly, even though nobody else cared at the time. And at the time, it was so much other stuff going on that nobody else really cared about my mind or anything that I had going on. And all of a sudden, a couple years later, things started waking up and cranking up, and then I started being where I should have been, no matter what was ever happening. I ain't pay attention to Satan guff, so I didn't really care about anything like taking truff. I mind my whole business the whole time like aching muff. I stayed humble and catastrophe like cake or tough, everything like Japanese tea and dumbo like Miss Apron's rough. And Miss Apron was her taping names. She did the things she should at first on the eager low, so make her bays. She did the things she did the first time like Lake Rays. She did better than the people on the case, so make her nays. She did better like Miss Claker Clays. If I wasn't rapping from the heavens, I'd be dead like Jacob Nays. I'd be deader like Miss Setter or Miss Peck and Pays. If I'm being attacked because I'm rapping, it's Miss Claker Nays. Clacker Nays and Clacker Tays Ashel. Ellie is the one that's there since the pack of days of Mays Marshall. Everything was like a days like Miss Trey's Castro. If they paid attention to my ways, they'd be game natural. Hokiaso and everything like Miss Jane Chakra. Everything like actual and matching with Mr. Rain Takra. If they paid attention to anything that I'm saying, laughter. Anything was Panther and Captain like Mr. Drain Hapter. And when they hear this, it's saying they claim like Miss Vain Panther. Everything was Tango Miss Chango Tang like Miss Lane After. 10 minutes I'm giving for Mr. Train Chapter. Everything was Clement on finish like Mr. Jane Nather. Oh,